Okay, so change the title a bit because I think nowadays we're talking about rivers for nature, for sure, but also for safety, for having secure cities, for example, and also for prosperity. So these are three elements coming together. And last year, all governments agreed on this framework for sustainable development goals. And unusually, wetlands were really recognised as being central to delivering on goals for development. So we are no longer really talking about nature or development. We're talking about nature, especially wetlands, being fundamental to solve the main development challenges of the world. So unless we conserve, better use and restore wetlands, then we are not able to reduce the risks of floods and droughts. We're not able to have enough water. We're not able to achieve sustainable development. So that's really the starting point. And yet, whilst the world is saying this, wetlands are being lost and degraded at ever greater speed. So we need wetlands, but we're losing them fast. And I want to take you, this is the global bit, to one of the biggest wetland systems in the world in South America, in La Plata Basin. So this whole wetland system is more than double the size of the Netherlands and Belgium together. It's huge, and this is a wetland system with actually similar pressures as here. Pressures from dams, navigation, agricultural change, and so on. But there is a similar campaign to keep this as one complete fluvial system. And why? Because of all the values of this wetland. Of course, for biodiversity, it's a massively valuable system. But the main argument, the main thing that will keep this river system intact is that people depend on it. People depend on it for their water, they depend on it for the farming, for the fishery, and they certainly depend on it to control the floodwaters in the peak time. So these are the reasons that will save that river system. And I've just actually come back from Quito in Ecuador, where the world was gathered on the new urban agenda. And it's very interesting, some of the elements that came from that new agreement. It's really saying, cities, look outside your city walls. Look at the water systems in the landscape and take care that you think about the future. Take care that any infrastructure you put in is sustainable. Think about the climate impacts. Think about the water risks. And think about multiple benefits from how you design your city and landscape. So this is the paradigm. And then, near where I live now, the city of Rotterdam, one of the biggest ports in the world, and it's 7 meters below sea level. So here, they have the most sophisticated hard engineering works to keep the sea out. But what they have found is that the hard infrastructure built in the last decades is actually causing many problems. Erosion, sedimentation, loss of the fishery, all kinds of water pollution issues, and more flooding. So now there is big investment in green infrastructure, actually in creating the floodplain again, even creating areas in the city which will flood, and renaturalising this river at huge expense. So it's not possible to defend a city and a port like this with hard structures. Nature is needed, especially for the future requirements in terms of climate change. But what's interesting is now all the infrastructure changes, they have multiple benefits. So including for fishing, for recreation, tourism, as well as security. So this is the direction it's going. And I think that it's true across Europe, now with the impact and the cost of floods, there is a big rethink going on about how to handle floodwaters. And of course it's not possible to prevent flooding, it's a matter of how to manage it. And increasingly these costs are causing planners to think about how to use the river systems and the landscape to protect the urban environment. And so when you have large natural floodplain systems, such as in the Sava River, as in the Vistula and the Oder here, then now there's really a cause to stop and think and calculate what it's worth. And it's calculated in the Sava that these floodplains are worth 1.4 billion euro in terms of reducing the risks in cities like Zagreb of flood impact. And so there, and this is the work of Realizacja, one of our members, the old plans for development are being rethought, knowing the value of these floodplains. So development is shifting in a new direction. And back in the Netherlands, of course, it was very extreme. Everything was channelized, everything had sluices and pumps, and it actually finally increased the risk of flooding. And some major flood events in the last decades caused a complete shift in thinking. And at the whole government level, all the ministries got together and decided to fund a 2.3 billion euro programme for 10 years to reshape the landscape, to take the dikes back from the floodplains, basically to undo what had been done before, but in a smart way, in a way that actually brings new values for recreation, new values for nature, new opportunities for the local economy. And of course not everybody supported this, because villages, even towns, needed to be moved. But it's now seen as a very, very successful programme, and that 2.3 billion brings so much extra value. I would say it's also a failure that you have to restore these systems. So it's a lesson to the rest of Europe. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with the European policy is giving different signals now. It's saying, look, water policy is something that should be connected with agricultural policy, energy, transport, nature. Sectors need to be thought about together, and water unites that. And green infrastructure is being given a big push as a means to deliver development. And also there's very strong signals to take care with major infrastructure schemes. Strategic environmental assessments, options are needed before jumping to conclusions. And just recently there was a statement by the current Slovak minister, is currently president of the council, and there was a conclusion from the council meeting saying, look, this water agenda in Europe, this is really at the heart of sustainable development. We need to give new focus. So these are the policy signals which perhaps need to be thought about in Poland. That seems to be the end of my slides. Okay, so I think in summary, my message would be, really it's about the values of the floodplain and river system as a whole, and the potential for those values to translate into sustainable development. That needs to be the focus, rather than one sector fighting another sector. This idea of multiple values through a much more integrated approach in the landscape, with the cities also looking outside at the river system and connecting those values with the livelihoods of people in the city. That's the future the world has decided on. And luckily for Poland, with such magnificent rivers, there's fantastic opportunity to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you.